Hello, morning. Chris here. Got my coffee. It's a lovely morning on Run. So the shop is now open, and I just wanted to run you through the new 2021 wines, just to whet your appetite and help you with your decisions. I like to do this every year, but I tend to go on a bit long. Last year's video was 10 minutes, so if I can beat 10 minutes, it'll be a minor miracle. Excuse me. Oh, that's good. Okay, so we're using this big barrel full of wine as a backdrop and as a prop. I think we're going to start with the bad news of the year, so that we can get on to the good news quickly. These are obviously older vintages, just using them as props. Alekrans 2021 unfortunately does not exist. We got very little grapes off the vineyard. 2020 and 2021 really struggling with drought, that vineyard. But there's good news. 2022 we had a much better yield. So it looks like there will definitely be a 22, but 2021 unfortunately no Alekrans, which sucks because it's a phenomenal vineyard. So the bit of wine that we did get is playing this role in Cartology this year. I think that's also important. And then the really devastating news of the year is that Magnetic North 2021, I've written it to you in a newsletter yesterday, has been ruined by a tank gasket, believe it or not, a faulty tank gasket, which is difficult for me to come to terms with because it was a very nice wine. I actually bought the tank specifically for the wine. It was the right volume. And it seemed like a good investment to age the wine for the last 6 months, and in about March we realized something was very wrong, and we've had the wine analyzed, and there's a bitterness in the wine that we just can't seem to get out of it, and I don't find wine, and the only options that I've got is fresh lees, and even with more commercial finding agents we've done experiments and nothing's working. So unfortunately the wine is gone, so we just have to live a year of our lives without Magnetic North, unfortunately. Right, so my dog's trying to get out. Okay, so right, let's run through the wines that we do have for you. We have 6 wines this year, and 2021 was a nice vintage. It was a very low yielding vintage, which was, it's frankly made our costs pretty high, but it's a high quality vintage, so I think you'll be pleased with the wines. We've tried to keep our prices reasonable despite the high costs. It's just part of the risk of working with bush vines and with dry farm vineyards and with old vines. The yields do vary significantly, and somebody has to take that risk. So we can't expect the farmers to take the risk every year. So it's usually the winery. Well, with our model of paying per hectare, it's the wineries that take the risk. So year after year, this is a bottle of 2020, but the 2021 wine, 2020 was just a smash hit immediately. It just gained a lot of friends and fans, and I think 21 is really going to cement the reputation of this wine. In agriculture, like I told you last year, you have to plant vineyards. You can't plant old vineyards. So you have to plant new young vineyards, and we need a home for those vineyards. So that's the purpose of Year After Year. Also, we have some growers with very good dry farm bush vine vineyards, which we're sort of grooming for future use, hopefully with Cartology. But they're too young right now and they need a home. So Year After Year is a fantastic bargain, I think. And you'll see the 21 is a very good wine. I'm really happy with it, and we've got a bit more, thankfully. Also, let me mention right now that there are only 2 bottle limits this year. The bottle limits are Monument Semion limited to 6, and Nautical Dawn limited to 6. These 2 we had relatively low productions this year. Okay, so then after Year, Cartology 2021 is obviously the main event. That's even after more than a decade, it's still the wine that in many ways excites me the most, because it with the single vineyard wines you really are at the mercy of the place and of the elements and of the season, and sometimes of tank gaskets, and then there's just nothing you can do about that. So for instance, the Skurfberg wines this year, just extremely low yields, no Hellkrans, and then disaster with magnetic knot. So there's nothing you can do about that. With Cartology, it's a selection of 9 really stunning old Chenin bush vine parcels and 1 very old Semion parcel that also makes Monument. And it gives me, a bit of creative freedom every year to really look at what's on song in that vintage. How can I turn out the best possible reflection of the vintage, And with our type of winemaking, vintage expression is crucial. We talk a lot about place expression, but faithfully expressing every vintage is very important as well. And I think we've really nailed that with Cartology 21. I've said it in the writing also, but I think the key word this year is purity. Palate weight's very similar to 2020, but there's just something about it. It's got almost like that rainwater kind of purity. It's very, very drinkable. We've just bottled it last week, and usually, that first week after bottling, the wines are still approachable. Then they go into a few months of being very quiet, called bottle shock. But yeah, I drank a bottle with my wife, and it's lovely. It's very pure. It's got lovely, delicate flavors. It's very detailed this year. In some vintages are, powerhouse vintages. Some vintages are more elegant and more fine, and this is definitely a fine vintage for us as far as Cartology goes. So I think you'll really like that. I love it. Okay, then we have 4 single origin wines. We'll start with the two old vine single origin Chenins. If James Bissett is watching this, he's probably giggling right now, and a few others. So it's Fire by Night, Fire by Night 2021. Yeah, I decided to get honest with myself and leave the Broom Ridge name. It was a name that I really wanted to work because I really love the label, and I wanted to do, to change the name of the farm and the wine to signify, a change of ownership and have one wine from one place, etc., etc. And I just could never make peace with the name. Every time I heard it and saw it and spoke it, I just got this funny feeling, and I really missed Fire by Night very much. So Fire by Night is back. It is the wine from Nieuwedam, from our farm on the Paardeberg. It's pure granite soils. We've got fantastic vines there, planted between 1971 and 1985. Really, really fantastic parcels, and we've put a lot of effort into the farming, and I think this is probably our wine of the vintage this year. The Paardeberg, our Paardeberg wines tend to be very sort of reserved and subdued in their youth, and but they age beautifully. I've had a few 18 Fire by Nights and 17 Fire by Nights recently, and the wines are only just starting to come into their own, So yeah, I think this is very bright and very fine. It's got a really stunning nose of thatch and fynbos and lime, and the palate is sort of a little bit almost compact and layered. It's very granitey, it's got that lovely granite soil kind of character. And then I suppose you could say so does our second single vineyard wine, Nautical Dawn. So both of our single vineyards this year are granite soil wines. This is granite soil Paardeberg, Swartland mountainside, and this is granite little hillside right on the ocean in Stellenbosch, right on the False Bay coast. It's a 1978 planting, and by now you know this wine quite well. So it's really cool to compare these two granite wines. They've both got that sort of clear, bright, almost like a white canvas background granite signature, but they are very different places. Where this is a bit more restrained and sort of nervous and fine. This is a bit more gregarious and kind of a bit of a show off as usual. Plenty of yellow fruit and that sort of sweet and sour pull that we get in Stellenbosch Chenin sometimes, and it's always got a sort of saline edge, and I don't know if that's because the southeaster that's literally just come off the ocean, blows through this vineyard all season. It's possible, but yeah, whatever the reason is, this vineyard turns out extraordinary wine every year. So we've got 2 very nice single vineyard Chenins for you, which are very good representations of the vintage. Coffee. Then we have Monument Semion 2021. in a bad year, this vineyard makes good wine, and in a good year, it makes wine like this. We had a run of good vintages with this vineyard. 16, 17 were really special. 18 was very good too. I think this vintage is back to sort of 2015, 2016 form, you know, where the wine is very textured and quite rich on the palate, but not really heavy. You'll have to taste it to understand what I'm saying. I love the nose. The nose is very expressive this year. Again, getting into that like slightly marzipanish kind of bitter almond sort of spectrum, and citrus, mandarin, nachi, something like that. It's just such a great vineyard, you know. It's such a privilege to be able to work with these vines planted on paper in 1936, although in reality they're probably quite a bit older than that. And genetically, you know, it's almost like a genetic sort of castaway. You know, you have to imagine generations and generations of farmers selecting their best vines, you know, over centuries. You know, in an era before nurseries, before vine nurseries, and then we have these vineyards that, you know, with all these different colors of Semion and crazy genetics. So it really is a very South African thing, and it's a very, very good vintage of this wine. And then we have the ever increasingly wonderful Himmelrand Vine Garden, which is, as I said to you guys last year, you know, it does in our portfolio seem like a square peg in a round hole, but I think that narrative is probably getting tired, you know, because the wine is just year after year, not year after year after year, growing in stature and getting better and better, to the point now where I kind of almost need to start making excuses for why it's more striking than our old vine wines. You know, it's just got this real nervous energy, fantastic acid, and it's interesting to see how, as the Chardonnay vines in the blend are maturing, they're starting to contribute more and more to the nature of the wine. We're starting to see not just the sort of exotic sort of fruit spectrum that we've seen in the past. There's something going on, you know, one layer below that. There's almost like a maybe oatmeal and honey thing going on, which is definitely a Chardonnay character, and it's lending depth to the wine and interest to the wine. So guys, enjoy your shopping experience. You know, it's wonderful for us to be able to offer you the wines directly for this brief window. It's a 10-day period. The prices that we are asking you are relatively significantly better than retail. Delivery is in South Africa. We are going to be closing the shop on Friday the 10th and doing dispatch on the 15th. So once the shop is closed, it's closed. We get emails every year asking for favors and that kind of thing, or people miss the mails. I understand that happens. We've tried this year to prime you as much as possible that the shop will be open. So enjoy the experience. Hopefully it's seamless. We've made a big effort from our side to make sure that everything works correctly.